My name is Jay. I'm 56 years old. 3 days ago, I sat in a small pub in Montana watching my son walk out the door. The bartender grabbed my wrist tight. His grip was firm, his eyes locked straight onto mine. What he whispered made my blood run cold. I came expecting a simple visit with my boy. Instead, I stumbled into something dark, something that could cost my son his life, and I had no idea he was at the very center of it. Have you ever felt that something was terribly wrong with someone you love, but you could not quite put your finger on it? If you have, let me know in the comments below. And before I continue, tell me where you are watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because what I discovered that night changed everything I thought I knew about my son. I spent 28 years working as an insurance fraud investigator in Denver, Colorado. It was the kind of job that taught you to read people, to notice the small details that others missed, to trust your gut when something felt off. I was good at it, maybe too good. I caught liars for a living. I uncovered schemes that cost companies millions. I sat across from people who smiled to my face while hiding the truth behind their eyes. And I always found it. The truth, I mean, no matter how deep they buried it. But none of that prepared me for what happened in Ridgewood, Montana. My wife Sandra passed away 5 years ago. Ovarian cancer. It spread fast, and by the time we caught it, there was nothing the doctors could do. I held her hand in that hospital room until the very end. She was 62 years old. We had been married for 34 years. When she died, a part of me went with her. I retired 3 years ago, not because I wanted to, but because I could not find the energy to keep going. The house in Denver felt too big, too quiet. Every corner reminded me of Sandra, her favorite chair by the window, the kitchen where she used to make Sunday breakfast, the garden she loved so much. I kept the house because I did not know what else to do, but I was not really living there. I was just existing. Our son Marcus was our only child. He was 28 years old now, and somewhere along the way we had drifted apart. It was not intentional. After Sandra died, neither of us knew how to talk to each other. She had always been the glue that held us together, the one who smoothed over the awkward silences and filled the gaps in our conversations. Without her, Marcus and I became like strangers sharing the same last name. 2 years ago, Marcus took a job with a real estate development company in Ridgewood, Montana, a small town I had never heard of, population around 4,000. He said it was a good opportunity, a chance to start fresh. I supported his decision, even though it meant he would be even further away. We talked on the phone maybe once a month after that. Short calls, 5 minutes, 10 at most, surface-level stuff. How is work? How is the weather? Take care of yourself. Talk soon. I missed my son. I missed who we used to be, but I did not know how to bridge the distance between us. Then, one Thursday evening, my phone rang. It was Marcus. His voice sounded different. Tired, maybe, or worried. I could not quite tell. But there was something underneath the words, something he was trying to hide. "Dad," he said, "I want you to come visit. I have things I need to tell you." I was surprised. Marcus had never invited me to Ridgewood before. In 2 years, he had never once suggested I come see his new life. I asked him if everything was okay. He paused for a long moment before answering. "I just need you, Dad. Can you come?" "Of course," I said. "I will be there as soon as I can." I booked a flight for the following weekend. As I packed my bag, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe this was our chance to reconnect. Maybe Marcus was finally ready to let me back into his life. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. I flew into Billings and rented a car for the 3-hour drive to Ridgewood. The landscape was beautiful. Mountains rising in the distance, thick forests of pine trees lining the roads, wide open skies that seemed to stretch forever. The air was crisp and clean, nothing like the city smog of Denver. I rolled down my window and breathed it in, letting myself imagine what life might be like in a place like this. I thought about Marcus as I drove. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike when he was 6. I remembered the summer we spent building a treehouse in the backyard, how proud he was when we finally finished it. I remembered watching football games together on Sunday afternoons, Sandra bringing us snacks and rolling her eyes at how loud we got when our team scored. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. A different version of me, a different version of Marcus. I wondered if we could ever get back to that. Sandra would have known what to do. She always did. She had this way of making everything feel possible, of bringing out the best in people. She would have found the right words to say the right way to reach him. But Sandra was gone, and I was on my own. I pulled into Ridgewood around 4 in the afternoon. The town was smaller than I expected. One main street lined with shops and restaurants, a few residential neighborhoods branching off in different directions, a church steeple rising above the trees. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where everyone probably knew everyone else. Marcus lived in a small apartment building near the center of town, 2 stories, red brick, nothing fancy. I parked out front and texted him that I had arrived. A minute later, he came down to meet me. My heart sank when I saw him. Marcus had always been a healthy kid. Athletic build, bright eyes, quick smile. But the man standing in front of me looked like a shadow of my son. He had lost weight. His cheeks were hollow, his eyes ringed with dark circles. His clothes hung loose on his frame. And when he smiled, it did not reach his eyes. It was the kind of smile people wear when they are trying to convince you that everything is fine. "Hey, Dad," he said. "Good to see you." I hugged him and I could feel his ribs through his shirt. "Good to see you too, son. You doing okay?" "You look tired." He pulled back and waved off my concern. "Just work. You know how it is. Lots of deadlines, lots of pressure. Come on, let me show you the apartment." His apartment was a mess, dishes piled in the sink, clothes scattered on the floor, empty takeout containers on the coffee table. This was not like Marcus. He had always been neat, organized. Sandra used to joke that he got his tidiness from her side of the family. I wanted to ask him what was wrong. I wanted to sit him down and make him tell me the truth, but I did not want to push too hard, not when we were just starting to reconnect. So I kept my mouth shut and pretended not to notice. Marcus gave me a quick tour, then suggested we go out for dinner. "There is a pub down the street," he said. "Good food, cold beer. I thought we could catch up there." "Sounds perfect," I said. As we walked to his car, I noticed him glancing over his shoulder. Just a quick look like he was checking to see if someone was watching. My investigator instincts kicked in. I filed it away in my mind, a small detail that might mean nothing or might mean everything. We got in the car and drove to the pub. Marcus did not say much during the short ride. He kept his eyes on the road, his fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel. I watched him from the passenger seat, trying to read him the way I used to read suspects in interview rooms. Something was wrong with my son. I could feel it in my bones. But I had no idea just how wrong things were about to get. The Rusty Antler was exactly what you would expect from a small-town pub. Dark wood paneling on the walls, dim yellow lighting, the smell of fried food and spilled beer hanging in the air. There was a long bar along one side with a row of stools and scattered tables filling the rest of the space. A few pool tables in the back, an old jukebox in the corner playing classic rock at a low volume. The place was about half full when we walked in, mostly locals from the look of them, working men with calloused hands and weathered faces. A few couples sharing baskets of wings, some younger guys shooting pool and laughing too loud. Everyone seemed to know each other. A few heads turned when we entered, curious glances at the unfamiliar face. The bartender caught my attention right away. He was maybe 45 years old, with a thick beard and tattoos covering both forearms. He had the kind of build that suggested he could handle himself in a fight. But it was his eyes that stood out. Sharp, watchful, the eyes of someone who saw everything and said nothing. Marcus led me to a table in the corner away from the bar and the other customers. It was a strange choice. Most people would sit near the center of the room where the energy was, but Marcus chose the most isolated spot in the place, like he was trying to hide. I didn't mention it. I just sat down and picked up the menu. A waitress came over and took our order. I got a burger and a beer. Marcus ordered a double whiskey, no food. I raised an eyebrow but kept quiet, so I said, trying to start a conversation, "Tell me about the job. How is the real estate business treating you?" Marcus shrugged. "It is fine. Busy, like I said. Lots of projects in development. The company is growing." "That is good," I said. "You enjoying the work?" He took a long drink of his whiskey before answering. "It pays the bills." "And how about friends? You meeting people here?" "Not really. Do not have much time for socializing. Dating anyone?" He shook his head. "No." The waitress brought my beer and another whiskey for Marcus. I noticed his hands trembling slightly when he picked up the glass. Just a tiny shake, barely visible. But I saw it. "Marcus," I said gently, "what is going on with you? And please do not tell me it is just work stress. I have known you your whole life. Something is wrong." He stared at his drink for a long moment. I could see him wrestling with something, trying to decide whether to tell me the truth. Then he forced another fake smile and shook his head. "I'm fine, Dad. Really. Just tired. Let us talk about something else. How is Denver?" How is the old neighborhood? I let it go. For now. We made small talk for the next 20 minutes, dancing around the elephant in the room. I told him about the neighbors, about the changes in the city, about nothing important. He nodded along, but I could tell he was not really listening. His eyes kept drifting to the door, to his phone, to the window. Then his phone buzzed on the table. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. All the color drained out of him in an instant. I have to go, he said abruptly, standing up. Wait here. I will be back in 15 minutes. Go where it is almost 10 at night. Work thing. Emergency. I will explain later. Marcus, wait. What is happening? But he was already walking away, moving fast toward the door. He did not look back. He did not say goodbye. He just pushed through the door and disappeared into the night. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. My son had invited me across the country to visit, and now he was running out on me without explanation. I stood up and walked to the window, trying to see where he went. I spotted him across the street, approaching a black SUV parked along the curb. The windows were tinted, but I could make out two figures inside. Marcus opened the back door and climbed in. A moment later, the SUV pulled away and vanished down the road. My heart was pounding. Every instinct I had developed over 28 years was screaming at me. Something was very, very wrong. I started toward the door, planning to follow somehow. Maybe call a cab, maybe run. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't sit there and wait. That is when I felt a hand close around my wrist. I spun around and found myself face to face with the bartender. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. Broad shoulders, thick neck, arms like tree trunks. But his grip was not aggressive. It was urgent. Sit down, he said quietly. Do not go out there. I tried to pull away. Let go of me. That is my son. I know who he is, and I know who he just left with. If you go out that front door right now, you're going to make things a lot worse. What are you talking about? Who are those people? He glanced around the pub, making sure no one was paying attention. Then he leaned in close and spoke in a low voice. Your son is in deep trouble. He owes money to some very dangerous people. A lot of money. The men in that SUV, they are not his colleagues. They are collectors. And if he does not pay what he owes by Sunday, they will hurt him. Maybe worse. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Owes money, Marcus. My Marcus. You must be mistaken, I said. My son is not like that. He does not gamble. He does not. The bartender cut me off. They got him hooked 2 years ago. Started small, just friendly poker games. Then the stakes got higher. Then he started losing. Then he started borrowing. Now he is in too deep to get out. $50,000 deep. I could not breathe. $50,000. It was more than I had in my savings. It was more than Marcus could possibly have. Who are you? I demanded. How do you know all this? My name is Frank. I own this bar, and I know because the same thing happened to my son 3 years ago. His name is Danny. He is 26 years old, and he will never walk again because of those men. They beat him so bad, he is in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The anger in his voice was raw, barely contained. This was not gossip. This was personal. I do not want to see another father lose his son, Frank said. So listen to me carefully. Do not let them know who you are. If they find out you have money, they will use you as leverage. They will squeeze you for everything you have and then come back for more. I cannot just leave my son out there. You are not going to help him by getting yourself caught. You need to be smart. Do not go out the front door. They might have people watching the street. Then how do I follow him? Frank looked at me for a long moment, sizing me up. Then he pointed toward the back of the pub. Bathroom. There is a window in the men's room. It is small, but you can fit through. Leads to the alley behind the building. From there, head east on foot. I saw which direction they went. If you hurry, you might be able to catch up. Why are you helping me? Because nobody helped me when it mattered. Now go, and be careful. I did not waste another second. I headed for the bathroom, my mind racing with everything Frank had told me. $50,000. Dangerous men. My son in the middle of it all. I pushed open the bathroom door and locked it behind me. The window was small, maybe 2 feet by 2 feet, positioned high on the wall above the sink. I climbed up onto the counter, my knees protesting, and pushed the window open. The night air hit my face cold and sharp. I squeezed through the opening, scraping my shoulders on the frame, and dropped down into the alley below. The landing sent a jolt of pain through my left knee, but I ignored it. I was 56 years old. I had not done anything like this in decades. But my son needed me, and nothing was going to stop me from finding him. I started running. The streets of Ridgewood were quiet at this hour. Most of the shops had closed for the night, their windows dark. A few bars still had their lights on, muffled music spilling out onto the sidewalk, but there was hardly anyone around. Just Me moving through the shadows trying to catch up to that black SUV. I remembered part of the license plate, 7-K something. It was not much, but it was something. My investigator brain was already working, filing away details, forming questions. Who were these men? Where were they taking my son? What would happen when they got there? I moved east, like Frank had said, sticking to the sidewalk, but staying alert. My eyes scanned every parked car, every side street, every storefront. I had spent nearly 3 decades looking for things that did not want to be found. I knew how to follow a trail. After about 10 minutes of fast walking, I spotted it. The black SUV parked in front of an old building at the end of Main Street. The building looked abandoned, maybe a former office or warehouse, but there was light coming from the second-floor windows, dim, yellowish light. I ducked behind a dumpster about 50 yards away and watched. The SUV's doors opened and 3 figures stepped out. 2 men I did not recognize. One was tall and muscular, bald head gleaming under the streetlight. He moved with the confidence of someone who was used to intimidating people. The other was shorter, older, with gray hair and a face like carved stone. Cold eyes, no expression. And then there was Marcus. My son climbed out of the back seat, his shoulders slumped, his head down. He looked defeated, broken, nothing like the confident young man I remembered. I strained to hear their conversation. The night was quiet enough that fragments of their voices carried across the distance. The bald one spoke first. His voice was harsh, impatient. "You have until Sunday. 50,000, not $1 less." Marcus replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I told you, I do not have that kind of money." The gray-haired one stepped closer to Marcus, getting right in his face. "Then find it, or we will take it out of your hide. Please." Marcus sounded desperate. "Give me more time, just a few more weeks." The bald one laughed. It was not a friendly sound. Time is a luxury you do not have. Then he shoved Marcus hard enough to make him stumble. Marcus caught himself against the wall of the building, and for a moment I saw his face in the light. He was terrified. Every fiber of my being wanted to charge over there. I wanted to grab those men by their throats and demand they leave my son alone. But I knew better. I was unarmed. I was outnumbered. And if I revealed myself now, I would only make things worse. So I stayed hidden and watched as the 2 men got back into the SUV and drove away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the dark. My son stood there for a long time after they left. He did not move. He just stared at the ground, his hands hanging limp at his sides. Then he covered his face with his hands and I could see his shoulders shaking. He was crying. I almost went to him then, almost stepped out of the shadows and told him I was there, that I knew everything, that we would figure this out together. But something held me back. I needed more information first. I needed to understand exactly what we were dealing with before I made any moves. Marcus eventually composed himself and started walking back toward his apartment. I followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows, making sure he did not spot me. It was strange tailing my own son through the streets of a town I had never been to before. But I had done surveillance hundreds of times in my career. I knew how to stay invisible. He made it back to his building about 20 minutes later. I watched him go inside, watched the light in his apartment turn on, then turn off again a few minutes later. He was going to bed. Probably not going to sleep, but at least he was safe for now. I found my way to the hotel I had booked before coming here. The Pine Lodge, a small motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had a bed and a lock on the door. That was all I needed. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. Frank's warning, the SUV, the 2 men, Marcus crying in the dark, $50,000, Sunday. How had this happened? How had my son fallen so far without me knowing? Had I been so wrapped up in my own grief that I missed the signs? Were there signs I should have seen? I thought about Sandra. She would have known something was wrong. She would have sensed it somehow, the way mothers always do. She would have driven to Montana months ago and dragged the truth out of Marcus, whether he wanted to share it or not. But Sandra was gone. And I had let the distance between me and my son grow until we were practically strangers. Not anymore, I told myself. Whatever it takes, I'm going to fix this. I finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning, just as the first hint of light was creeping over the mountains. I did not dream. I was too exhausted for dreams. But when I woke up a few hours later, I had the beginning of a plan forming in my head. 28 years of catching liars and exposing fraud. 28 years of building cases, gathering evidence, putting together puzzles. This was what I did. This was who I was. Those men had made a mistake when they targeted my son, because now They had me to deal with. I was at the Rusty Antler by 7:30 the next morning, waiting outside the front door. The sun was just coming up over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It would have been beautiful if I had been in any mood to appreciate it. Frank arrived around 8, keys in hand. He did not seem surprised to see me. "Figured you would be back," he said, unlocking the door. "Come on in. I will make coffee." The pub looked different in the morning light. Emptier, smaller. Without the crowd and the noise, it was just a room with some tables and a bar. Frank led me to a booth in the back and disappeared into the kitchen. He returned a few minutes later with 2 mugs of black coffee and sat down across from me. So he said, "What did you see?" I told him everything. The building at the end of Main Street, the 2 men, the bald one and the gray-haired one, the threats, the deadline, Marcus crying alone in the dark. Frank nodded slowly. "The bald one is Vince. He is the muscle, the one who does the dirty work. The older one is Dale. He is the brains. They are brothers. What else do you know about them? They have been running this operation for about 5 years now. Started with a small poker game invitation only. Then it grew. They opened an underground casino in an old warehouse about 5 miles outside of town. Slot machines, blackjack, roulette, the whole thing. They target young people, people who are lonely or struggling or looking for excitement. Get them hooked, then loan them money when they lose. The interest rates are brutal. Most people can never dig themselves out." "And the police," Frank's expression darkened. "The sheriff is a man named Boyd. He is not on their payroll, but he's not going to do anything about them either. He is scared. Or maybe he just does not care. Either way, you will not get help from him. Anyone else? There's a deputy named Hawkins. Young guy, only been on the job for a couple of years. He is honest, but he has got no power. Boyd keeps him on a tight leash." I absorbed this information, turning it over in my mind. "What about evidence? Anything that could bring these guys down?" Frank leaned forward. "There is a woman named Patty who works for them. She handles the books. Keeps track of all the money coming in and going out. Everything is on her laptop. Names, amounts, dates. If you could get that laptop, you would have enough to put Vince and Dale away for years. How do I get to her? You do not. She never leaves the warehouse when the casino is running. Thursday through Sunday, she is locked up in there with armed guards. Then I need another way in. You are not going to assault an armed compound by yourself." I smiled grimly. "No, but I know people who can." I pulled out my phone and found a number I had not called in years. Walter Simmons, 60 years old, former FBI agent, retired now but still connected. We had worked together on several fraud cases back in the day, cases that crossed state lines and required federal involvement. He owed me a few favors. I stepped outside to make the call. Walter picked up on the 3rd ring. "Jay." "That really you? I have not heard from you since Sandra's funeral, I know. I'm sorry. But I need your help, Walter. My son is in trouble." I gave him the short version, the gambling debt, the threats, Vince and Dale and their underground casino. Walter listened without interrupting. When I finished, he let out a long breath. "That is a lot to take in. You got any evidence?" "Some. Photos and video of the warehouse, but I need more. Send me what you have. I will make some calls, see if I can get the Montana field office interested. But Jay, these things take time. We are talking about warrants, coordination, manpower. I do not have time. They gave my son until Sunday. When is that? Day after tomorrow." There was a pause. "I will do what I can. Give me 24 hours. Thank you, Walter. And Jay, be careful. Do not do anything stupid." I hung up and went back inside. Frank was watching me with a guarded expression. "Well, I have a contact at the FBI. He is going to try to get help, but it might not come in time. So what are you going to do?" I finished my coffee and stood up. "Right now I'm going to talk to my son. It is time he told me the truth. I found Marcus at his apartment. He looked worse than the day before, if that was possible. Red-rimmed eyes, unwashed hair, the same clothes he had been wearing last night. He opened the door and stared at me with a mixture of surprise and dread. "Dad, what are you doing here? I thought you were staying at the hotel." "We need to talk," I said. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped aside to let me enter. The apartment was still a mess, maybe even worse now. I cleared some clothes off the couch and sat down. Marcus remained standing, arms crossed over his chest. "Look about last night. I'm sorry I ran out. It was just, I know about the money, Marcus." His face went white. "What $50,000? Vince and Dale. The deadline on Sunday. I know everything." He looked like I had just punched him in the gut. How? How do you know that I followed you last night? After you left the pub, I climbed out the bathroom window and tracked you to that building on Main Street. I saw them threaten you. I heard what they said. Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Oh God. Dad, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. I never wanted you to find out at all. Tell me how this happened, all of it, and he did. The whole story came pouring out 2 years of bad decisions and worse luck. He had come to Ridgewood looking for a fresh start after his mother died. He was lonely and depressed, and when some guys from work invited him to a poker night, it seemed harmless, a way to make friends blow off steam. But the stakes kept getting higher, and Marcus kept losing. He thought he could win it back, just needed one good night. Classic gambler's logic. Instead, he got deeper and deeper into the hole. When he could not cover his losses, Vince offered him a loan. Low interest, easy payments, no problem. Except the interest was not low, and the payments were not easy, and soon Marcus owed more than he had ever owed in his life. He had been juggling payments for months, barely keeping his head above water. Then he lost his job 2 weeks ago. The project he was working on fell through, and the company laid him off. Suddenly, he had no income and a mountain of debt. That was when he called me. He wanted to tell me everything, wanted to ask for help. But when I showed up, he lost his nerve. I did not know how to say it, he admitted. I did not know how to tell my father that I ruined my life. I moved across the room and sat next to him. You did not ruin your life. You made mistakes, big ones. But we are going to fix this, together. How? I do not have $50,000. I do not have anything. Leave that to me. But Marcus, from now on, you have to trust me. No more secrets, no more running. We are in this together. Understand? He looked at me with tears in his eyes, the same eyes his mother had. Yes, Dad, I understand. I put my hand on his shoulder. Good. Now here is what we are going to do. That night I made a decision that went against every cautious instinct I had developed over decades. I was going to get the evidence myself. Frank had told me about Patty and her laptop, about the warehouse where the casino operated, about the guards and the layout and the schedule. Friday night the place would be packed, dozens of gamblers plus staff plus security. It was risky, maybe even reckless, but I had done riskier things in my career, and I was not going to sit around waiting for bureaucracy to save my son. Frank lent me his truck, an old Ford pickup that would not draw attention. He also drew me a rough map showing how to get to the warehouse and where the entrances were. There is a fire escape on the north side of the building, he said. It leads up to a second-floor window. Last I heard, they do not usually have guards on that side. Everyone focuses on the front entrance where the customers come in, and the window might be locked, might not. You will have to find out. I drove out there around 9 o'clock when the casino would be in full swing. The warehouse was exactly where Frank said it would be, an old industrial building set back from the road surrounded by trees. There were about 20 cars parked out front, and I could see a couple of large men standing by the main entrance checking people as they went in. I parked the truck a quarter-mile down the road and approached on foot, staying in the shadows of the tree line. The night was cold and my breath came out in visible puffs. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Some part of me had missed this, the adrenaline, the danger, the hunt. I circled around to the north side of the building, away from the lights and the guards. The fire escape was right where Frank said it would be, a rusty metal staircase clinging to the side of the building. I tested the first step carefully. It groaned under my weight but held. I climbed slowly, trying to minimize noise. Each step brought me closer to the second-floor window. When I reached the landing, I peered through the glass. I could see down into the main floor of the casino, tables everywhere crowded with people, slot machines lining the walls, lights flashing. Vince was there, walking among the gamblers, playing the gracious host. Dale sat at a desk in the corner next to a woman I assumed was Patty. She had a laptop open in front of her, typing away. There it was. The evidence I needed, 20 feet away through a window and a room full of criminals. I tried the window. Locked. I pulled out my pocket knife and worked at the latch. This was not my first time breaking into somewhere I was not supposed to be. Insurance fraud investigations sometimes required creative methods. After a minute of careful manipulation, the latch clicked open. I slid the window up slowly, wincing at the faint scraping sound. Then I slipped inside and found myself on a narrow catwalk overlooking the casino floor. The noise from below covered any sound I made. I crouched low and took out my phone, switching it to silent mode. For the next 10 minutes, I documented everything. Photos of the gambling floor, video of money changing hands, close-ups of Vince and Dale. I zoomed in on Patty and her laptop, capturing shots of the spreadsheets on her screen. This was enough. Maybe not enough to convict them on its own, but enough to get the FBI interested. Enough to prove this operation existed. Enough to save my son. I was just about to leave when my phone slipped from my grasp. It clattered against the metal catwalk with a sound that seemed impossibly loud. I grabbed for it, caught it before it fell through the grating, but the damage was done. A guard down below looked up. His eyes met mine. "Hey, someone is up there." I did not wait to see what happened next. I lunged for the window and threw myself through it, landing hard on the fire escape. Shouts erupted behind me. Footsteps pounded upstairs somewhere inside the building. I flew down the fire escape, taking the steps 2 at a time, ignoring the screaming protest of my knees. When I hit the ground, I ran, faster than I had run in 20 years, through the trees toward the road, toward the truck. I could hear them behind me, at least 2 men crashing through the underbrush. They were younger, faster, but I knew these woods better than they realized. Frank had shown me an old logging trail that cut through the forest, a shortcut back to the road. I found the trail and followed it, branches whipping at my face, roots threatening to trip me with every step. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop. I burst out of the trees and saw the truck 50 yards ahead. I made it in seconds that felt like hours, fumbled for the keys, threw myself inside. The engine roared to life just as my pursuers emerged from the forest. I floored it. The truck fishtailed on the gravel, then found traction and shot forward. In my rearview mirror, I could see headlights appearing in the distance. They were following. But Frank's old Ford had more power than it looked, and I knew how to drive. I lost them after 10 minutes of winding back roads and sudden turns. When I was sure I was clear, I pulled over on a dark stretch of highway and let myself breathe. I had the evidence, but now they knew someone was onto them, and it would not take them long to figure out who. The next morning, Vince called Marcus's phone. I watched my son's face go pale as he listened. "We know your father was at the warehouse. Do not think you can run." Vince's voice was loud enough that I could hear it from across the room. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. "The debt is $60,000 now, and if you try anything else, we will make sure both of you pay." Marcus hung up his hands, shaking. "They know it was you. They know." I took the phone from him and set it down on the table. Good. Are you crazy? They just added $10,000 and threatened to kill us both." "They are scared," I said calmly. "That is why they raised the price. They know their operation is compromised. They are trying to scare us into backing off. And if your FBI friend does not come through, then we deal with it ourselves. But right now I need to make a call." I dialed Walter's number. He picked up immediately. "Talk to me. Good news," Walter said. I got through to the field office. "Agent named Morales is taking lead. She is putting together a team. They can be there by tomorrow afternoon." Tomorrow afternoon. The deadline with Vince was Sunday at 6. That gave us a buffer, but not much. Can they move faster? "They are already expediting. This is the best I can do, Jay. Then it will have to be enough. Tell Morales I have evidence. Photos, video, everything. I will send it over encrypted." "Good. She will need it for the warrants. And Jay, hang tight. Help is coming." I hung up and looked at my son. "I have a plan, but I need you to trust me. I trust you, Dad." "Good. Then here is what we are going to do." I picked up Marcus's phone and called the number that had just threatened us. Vince answered on the second ring. "This is Marcus's father," I said. "I have money. I will pay the debt." There was a pause. Then Vince laughed. Well, the old man wants to play hero. $60,000. I will bring it in cash. But I need until Monday to get it from the bank." "Monday." "No deal. Sunday, 6 in the evening, not a minute later." "Fine. But I choose the location, somewhere public, the parking lot of the grocery store on Main Street." Another pause. Vince was thinking it over. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. "All right," he said finally. "Sunday, 6, the grocery store parking lot. Come alone, and do not try anything clever. Old man, you will regret it. I will be there." I hung up. Marcus was staring at me like I had lost my mind. "You do not have $60,000. "No," I said, "but by Sunday at 6, I will not need it." Sunday morning arrived cold and clear. I'd barely slept the night before, running through scenarios in my head, trying to anticipate everything that could go wrong. There were a lot of things that could go wrong. Walter called at noon. The FBI team was on the ground. 8 agents led by a woman named Agent Morales. They had reviewed my evidence and obtained warrants. The plan was to raid the warehouse at 5 o'clock 1 hour before my meeting with Vince. I insisted on meeting with Morales before the operation. We arranged to connect at a diner on the outskirts of town away from prying eyes. She was not what I expected. Mid-40s, short dark hair, no-nonsense demeanor. She had the look of someone who had seen a lot and was not easily impressed. We shook hands and sat down in a corner booth. "Mr. J," she said, "Walter speaks highly of you. He is a good man. I appreciate you moving so fast on this. Your evidence made it easy. We have been aware of operations like this in rural Montana, but we have never had enough to act on. You handed us a case on a silver platter. I just want my son safe." She nodded. "Understood. Here is how this is going to work. We hit the warehouse at 1700 hours. By the time you are supposed to meet Vince, he and his brother will already be in custody. But I need you to stay away from the action. This is a federal operation now. You have done your part. What about my son?" "Where is he now? I have him hidden. A friend is keeping him safe." "Good. Keep it that way until we give the all clear. And if something goes wrong..." "If Vince does not show up at the warehouse," Morales looked at me steadily, "then we improvise. But I do not expect that to happen. These guys think they are untouchable. They will be there." We went over the details one more time, then I left to prepare for whatever came next. I had done everything I could. Now it was out of my hands. I spent the next few hours at the Rusty Antler with Frank and Marcus. We sat in the back room waiting for news, barely speaking. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. At exactly 5 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from Morales. "Moving now. Stand by." The next hour was the longest of my life. I paced the small room, checking my phone every 30 seconds, imagining all the things that could be happening. Frank watched me with quiet sympathy. Marcus sat in the corner, knees pulled up to his chest, looking younger than his 28 years. At 5:45, the phone rang. I answered before the first ring finished. "Morales, what happened?" "We got them. Vince Dale, the accountant. Patty, 5 of their security guys, all in custody. The laptop has everything we need, names, amounts, dates going back years. This is going to be a big case." I felt the tension drain out of my body like water from a burst dam. No one was hurt, no injuries on either side. They surrendered when they saw they were outnumbered. Thank God. "Mr. J, your son is clear. The debt, everything it is void. These people are going away for a long time." I could not speak for a moment. "Thank you," I finally managed. "Thank you for everything. Thank your friend Walter and yourself. You took a hell of a risk going into that warehouse. My son was worth it." There was a pause. Then Morales said something that surprised me. "You did good work here. If you ever get tired of retirement, give me a call." I laughed, the first genuine laugh I had experienced in days. "I appreciate that, but I think I will stick to being a father for now." I hung up and turned to Marcus. He was on his feet, eyes wide, waiting. "It is over," I said. "They got them. All of them." Marcus's face crumpled. He crossed the room and threw his arms around me, holding on like he used to when he was a little boy afraid of thunderstorms. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you." I held my son tight and let him cry. Frank stood by the door, a small smile on his weathered face. I thought about his son Danny, confined to a wheelchair because no one had been there to help him. At least this story had a different ending. That night, Marcus and I sat in the pub until closing time. We talked about everything. His mother, his gambling, his fears, my grief, my regrets. All the years we had wasted not talking at all. It was not going to be easy. Marcus still had a long road ahead of him. Recovery from addiction, rebuilding his life, learning to trust himself again. But for the first time in a long time, we were facing the future together. I did not know what would come next, but I knew one thing for certain. I was not going to lose my son. Not now, not ever. The weeks that followed were a slow process of healing. Marcus enrolled in a gambling addiction recovery program. I stayed in Ridgewood for a month, attending meetings with him, helping him sort through the wreckage of the past 2 years. We spent more time together in those 4 weeks than we had in the previous 5 years combined. Frank became something of a friend to both of us. He stopped by the apartment regularly, bringing home cooked meals and gruff encouragement. One night, he brought his son Danny with him. Danny was 26 years old, sharp and funny despite everything he had been through. He and Marcus talked for hours about their experiences, finding common ground in their shared struggles. "Thank you," Danny said to me as they were leaving, "for doing what I wish someone had done for me." I could not find the words to respond. I just shook his hand and hoped he understood. Agent Morales called a few times with updates on the case. Vince and Dale were facing federal charges, including racketeering, loan sharking, assault, and money laundering. Patty had agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. The evidence was overwhelming. They were going away for a very long time. Justice. It did not undo the harm they had caused, but it was something. Eventually, Marcus decided to leave Ridgewood. Too many bad memories, he said. Too many temptations. He wanted a fresh start, a real one this time. He asked if he could move back to Denver, maybe stay with me for a while until he got back on his feet. I told him the house felt too big for one person anyway. On my last day in Montana, I went back to the Rusty Antler one final time. Frank was behind the bar, wiping down glasses the way he always did. "You heading out?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning. Marcus and I are driving back together." Frank nodded. "Good. He needs his father. I owe you, Frank, for everything. If you had not warned me that first night." He waved off my gratitude. "Just promise me you will look out for him. That boy has a chance now. Do not let him waste it." "I will not. I promise." We shook hands and I walked out into the cool Montana evening. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful. The kind of beauty I had stopped noticing for too long. I thought about Sandra as I drove back to Marcus's apartment. I wondered what she would think of everything that had happened. Probably she would have scolded me for climbing through that bathroom window at my age. Then she would have hugged me and told me she was proud. "I miss you," I said out loud to no one in particular. "But I think maybe I'm going to be okay." The next morning, Marcus and I loaded up the rental car and headed south. 12 hours to Denver, give or take. We stopped for coffee at a gas station outside Billings. We stopped for lunch at a diner in Wyoming. We talked and laughed and sat in comfortable silence, the miles rolling by beneath us. At one point, Marcus looked over at me from the passenger seat. "Dad, can I ask you something? Anything? Why did you do it? Risk everything like that. Coming to the warehouse, facing down Vince, all of it. You could have just called the cops and let them handle it." I thought about the question for a moment before answering. "Because you are my son. And because your mother would have done the same thing, probably with fewer broken rules. I lost her 5 years ago. I was not going to lose you too." Marcus was quiet for a long time after that. Then he reached over and put his hand on my shoulder. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." We drove the rest of the way home. I have told you this story because I think it matters. Not because of the danger or the drama, but because of what it taught me about being a father. I walked into that pub expecting nothing more than a beer with my son. I walked out with something I had been missing for years, a second chance. Frank told me that night that he did not want to see another father lose his son. I understand now what he meant. Some mistakes cannot be fixed. Some opportunities only come once. But sometimes, if you are lucky and stubborn and willing to climb out of a bathroom window at 56 years old, you get a chance to make things right. I'm not going to pretend everything is perfect now. Marcus still struggles some days. Recovery is not a straight line. There are setbacks and frustrations and moments when the old temptations come calling. But he is fighting. Every day he is fighting, and I'm right there beside him for as long as he needs me. Because that is what being a father means. Not being perfect, not having all the answers, just showing up, being present, letting your children know that no matter how far they fall, you will always be there to help them stand back up. Sandra knew that. She lived it every day of her life as a mother. I wish it had not taken me this long to understand, but I understand now, and that is something. If you are watching this, and you have someone in your life who is struggling, do not wait. Do not assume someone else will help them. Do not tell yourself it is not your place or not your problem. Pick up the phone, get in the car, climb through the window if you have to. Because sometimes the most important rescue mission is not about catching criminals or gathering evidence. It is about showing up when someone you love needs you the most. And maybe, just maybe, that is what love truly means. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to fight for someone you love? Have you ever been given a second chance when you thought all hope was lost? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I believe our experiences can help others who might be going through something similar. If this story touched you, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know, and if you have not already, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any of our future stories. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And wherever you are tonight, I hope you hold your loved ones a little closer. Life is short. Do not waste it on distance. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.